What's the strangest question you've ever been asked at a job interview? The job entailed a lot of filing of papers, so I got asked how do you best file things in folders alphabetically? I was like up with a folder for each letter and then put the folders in alphabetical order. She said good, and jotted down some notes. Weird series of questions. Interviewer picks up phone. What's your wife's number? Me, she's in the US and it's 2 AM there. Why would you want to call my wife? Interviewer, is your mother also in the US? Me, yes. Why? Interviewer, well, say I would call your wife or mother. What would they say is your most annoying habit? Interviewer, I see you graduated from school in 2013. Did you know a Ms. Jane Doe? Me, oh yeah, I know her. She was in my first year classes. Interviewer, Ms. Doe interviewed yesterday. Why should we hire you over her? I basically responded with you should hire us both, ideally. Then I said why I'd be good for the job overall. Neither of us got the job. Wasn't a question, just funny/weird. I was in high school looking for a part-time job, so I went to a local Chinese restaurant and asked for an application. Their response, what's that? I said I would like to work for them. So the person behind the counter told me to hold on for a minute, went into the kitchen to talk to the owner, and came back out to hand me a pen and a sticky note. He told me to write down some information. I write my name and phone number and ask if that's enough, and he says that it is. So I get a call over the weekend asking me to come in Monday after school. I thought, cool, got an interview. I show up and they tell me to pull my car around back. When I do, they come out of the restaurant with a bag of food and a GPS and say, here, go deliver this. Needless to say, I got the job and worked for them for the next 6.5 years. This was during a mock interview while I was in college. The professor had her husband come in and we had to go in one by one and do an interview. Just like in real life. Well, everyone is going in and coming out smiling, not taking too long. So I thought it would be a cakewalk. My turn is next. I go in and everything is going smoothly. He takes a look at my resume and sees that I was in the military. He asks, tell me about your time in the military. So I tell him what I did, that I worked with a variety of different people from different backgrounds, with different views on life and opinions, and that I supervised people, etc. He says okay, good, and continues with the interview. Asks a few more questions, then says tell me about your time in the military. I figured maybe he didn't realize he already asked me that, or maybe it was a test, so I repeated what I said. He starts turning slowly in his chair, looking at the ceiling and says again, tell me about your time in the military. I just looked at him. He stopped spinning in his chair and looked at me. After about 20 seconds, he says okay, we are done here. I got a B. You want a beer? No lie, just like that. I hesitated because I was not expecting that, but he opened the fridge, and it was filled with beer, half Budweiser, half Coors Light. I passed on the beer, still have the job. I was being interviewed by a certain cell phone service provider. The interview was going great, the manager was really nice and charismatic, but the last question really stuck out to me. If this company implemented a policy that you thought was morally wrong, would you still follow said policy? I answered no, and I said that if I thought the policy was wrong on a moral level, that I would likely quit the job. That's when I was dismissed from the interview. Needless to say, I don't use that provider anymore. Completely technical interview. Then at the end of the interview, they asked me if I was a fruit or a vegetable, what would I be, and why. I laughed and asked them to repeat the question. They did, quite earnestly. I said I would be a Granny Smith apple, since I was a little tart, but once baked into a pie with other apples, I was delicious. It was a group interview over the phone. They murmured that it was a good answer and thanked me for my time. I did not get the job. This one was sort of my fault, but I was being interviewed, and the interviewer asked how I would handle termination, and I said I would want to know why. She cut me off and apologized, and said she meant how would I approach terminating an employee. I asked for the context and she said, imagine you had to fire me, how would that go? I was confused because I wasn't applying for a position superior to her, so I asked what she was being fired for and she, I believe, innocently said I don't know. I did something really inappropriate to you, with you. I mean, just something inappropriate. It was really weird because neither of us seemed to know how to handle the interview at this point, though I did get the job. I was asked, can you stay a few minutes and help me move some furniture? It was for a job at an engineering firm. Years later I was told that he was both trying to figure out whether I was a no, that's not what I'm being hired for kinda guy or a sure, I'll do whatever needs doing kinda guy. Also, he did have a couple of desks that he needed help moving. I did stay and help, and I did get the job. I was once asked in an interview, do you look at your shit after you wipe? Which they asked me to see if I would lie or not. Apparently it is a natural instinct that nearly everyone does, which, back in our caveman days, used to be a way to see if you were getting sick or not via the color of your steaming dung. I laughed and said yes. Not a question, but when I tried to get a job that would involve a fair amount of driving, I half-jokingly wrote down driver's license under work experience. My interviewer took one look at the application and said valid driver's license. Good. You're already ahead of the other guy. I was being interviewed by a young guy and two old ladies. The guy just kind of stared at me the entire interview, while the women asked all of the questions. After they were done questioning me, one of them asked him if he had any questions for me, and before she could finish the statement he blurted out, "Are your boobs real? They look really good." I was in shock. The woman in charge asked me to please wait outside, and after a minute both ladies met me in the hallway and offered me the position I interviewed for at $2 an hour more than what the position tops out at. I'm still here 3.5 years later, and I've never seen that guy since the interview. Not me, but my husband was asked who he voted for and his personal feelings on his daughter's ability to, one day, she was only like 7 months old at the time, get birth control without his permission. He told the guy that his personal opinions on such things didn't seem relevant to an accounting position. He didn't get offered the job. It was for a tech job at a small company. When I was young, Google had just become trendy and cool not long before. It was something like, how many windows are in New York? I asked if they were serious, and they said yes, it was an exercise to see how I'd work out the problem and they wanted me to answer. So I went with it, cause I wanted to the job, spoke through my reasoning. Then the guy smiles like a jackass and says, yeah, really, the answer is, if I needed to know I'd just Google it. It was such a dick move, and I was such a cocky little shit, that I just walked out. In an interview for a tech support position at a software company, they asked me, okay, imagine that you're a quality assurance person for a toaster company. How would you test the toaster out to see if you could make it fail? And I went through every iteration I could think of that would break the toaster, stick non-bread/food items into it, operate it upside down/ stuff like that. There was clearly a specific correct answer they were looking for, and after like 10 minutes we just had to move on. I did not get the job, and I will never know what specific thing it was they were looking for with that question. One interview in particular stands out in my mind. I hadn't even applied for the job. They found me on LinkedIn, and since I was looking I figured, what the hell? The guy interviewing me came with a list of questions, which is pretty normal. But the questions he asked were pretty weird. One was, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? My answer was to fly, because it would be fun and super easy to travel. He liked that answer. Then he asked me to rate things on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 was, how much do you value honesty? So I said 9, since I'm an honest person and value honesty in others. He liked that answer. A few questions later he said, how much do you value getting things done on time? I said 7, because you can't always anticipate how long things can take to be resolved, and sometimes there are complications. He asked me, so you don't value getting things done on time then? And I said no, it's not that, but I told you earlier that I value honesty more. He really liked that answer. Anyway, they ended up offering me the job, and I turned them down. So they called me back with a better offer, and I still said no. At this point the nice hour lady asked me why I was turning them down. So I told her, I never even applied for this job. You called me to set up the interview. and the interview I had with your company was one of the weirdest I've ever had, so I don't think it would be a good fit. They joked about whether or not they would ask me a question throughout the interview. They didn't for most of it, but by the end, I just had to know what the question was. I had to defend not liking Ready Player One. As part of checking that I'm not a psycho on social media, they came across my Goodreads review summing up why I didn't like the book. One of the interviewers loved it. I'm pretty sure I ended up not getting the job because I got a little too focused on the discussion about the book with that interviewer and the other interviewer wasn't interested. Please like and subscribe for more Reddit videos.